a couple of the things that excite me the most is our ability to tap talent globally, hard stop, regardless of where you are, and that all people have an opportunity to contribute to great projects all around the world. And so this unlocking of talent is actually really exciting for me. It's not just, we move away from those traditional ways of kind of finding work and contributing to projects and the like.
Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast presented by BST Global, where we feature the visionaries that are helping to shape the AEC industry of the future. My name is Javier Baldor, Chief Executive Officer at BST Global, and your host for today's podcast. We have today Shannon Miller, President of Strategy, Growth, and Digital at Jacobs. I'm super excited to welcome you here today on this podcast. I want to begin by personally thanking you for not only participating in this podcast, but delivering an outstanding and insightful keynote address at the BST Global AI Summit. So thank you very much for that. And if you'd be kind enough to introduce Jacobs to us and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you for inviting Jacobs to participate in this forum. It's great to see the industry come together and talk about something that I think is so incredibly timely and powerful for where we're trying to go. But so maybe starting with the first bit on Jacobs. So we are one of the world's leaders in infrastructure and advanced facilities, really across the entire asset life cycle. So everything from upfront planning and advisory all the way through design, construction management, program management, and then operations and maintenance as well. And you will have heard me say this before, we're in the business of making our clients' business a better business. And we do that by really focusing on deep domain expertise around the science of their business and understanding what their challenges are. And then we partner very closely with them to bring the best solution from the best talent pool that we've been able to pull together to solve those problems. So that's a little bit about Jacobs, focused on critical infrastructure, water and environment, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing as our core end markets that we operate in. We're fortunate that we get to operate in 40 countries. We have 45,000 people, and so we've got a really great size and scale and truly global delivery platform to deliver outstanding results for our customers. Myself, I've actually been a career person at Jacobs, which I did not intend. I feel like I am an anomaly in this world today, but I would offer that although I've had basically one paycheck provider my entire career, there's a small nuance there along the way. I've really had the great opportunity to have actually probably 6 different careers in the company, and I've been able to work in all of our major geographies. I've lived in Europe twice. Spent time in Australia, lived in Canada, did a small stint in China, helped solve some challenges that we had when we were in South America. So I've been able to work all around the world and in all of our end markets, which has been really a great career journey. You and I were talking before this. I'm not sure if you would have asked 25-year-old Shannon Miller what she would be doing when she's this age, which we won't put a number on it.
Naturally not.
I don't know that I would have answered the question the way that it played out, but I feel like I sit in a very fortunate position.
Well, that's awesome. Talk to me about that journey. You said you've been all over the world, single paycheck with Jacobs. What has that meant to you personally? What has that journey been like as you've gone in a number of different roles, number of different geographies? You must be part pioneer. You have a bit of that spirit in you, and obviously very talented as well. So help share with our audience that journey, that personal journey, and what did you learn?
Yeah. So, and I won't spend a long time belaboring on my childhood, but I'm very fortunate to have 2 great parents, and they taught me to be curious and that I could do anything I put my mind to and don't worry about any labels or anything that happens. I never thought about that growing up. And my dad, although we tease him that he's not technically an engineer, he's a geologist, fantastic in his own right. He really taught me the love of problem solving and asking questions and being curious and doing something different all the time, which I love that's part of my kind of personality and DNA and my family set. So that kind of formed, I think, a great basis to be just intellectually curious And I've always been culturally curious. I like to tell people, if there's two things you take away about me, I love thermodynamics. I love heat transfer. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but really what that gets to is I like change. And if you're going to exert energy into a system, it should come out in a more ordered state. But we're not here to talk about science in that way. And the other thing is I've always just wanted to see the world and meet different people and understand different cultures. And I've been able to do that a lot in the work that I do. Which has been quite fun. So, although I started out as a process engineer, my degree was in chemical engineering. I got curious about just how we do better project delivery for our customers. That sent me on journeys with different market segments, from consumer products and manufacturing to working in oil and gas. And actually, now when I look back on it, I did a lot in the realm of automation and technology and scale up of processes, whether that was for our client or internally at Jacobs. So all these different building blocks that I learned along the way have come together nicely in what I focus on for today at Jacobs, which is how do we better solve the problems of today for our clients and then figure out where we go next along with them, down the road.
Well, it's so impressive to have that the different perspectives, the variety of roles, seeing the landscape from all different angles. How do you think that helped shape you with how you are driving digital, how you're driving strategy in the business? You think it gave you a very strong, insightful foundation to work from,
Yeah.
having looking back on that career now, would you
Yeah.
say, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spent the first really 10 years of my career delivering for clients. If you asked me who I worked for, I probably would say more our client's name than I
Really?
did
Huh?
Jacobs. Absolutely. Like I worked for predominantly one customer for the first 10 years of my life. I went to their facility every single day. I sat in their operations meetings, and that just gave me a deep sense of what was important for them. And what was exciting is then taking that information back into Jacobs and figuring out how we better deliver for customers. And it kind of goes back to that problem solving nature within me. And then I was able to do that in a lot of different, geographies. And what became kind of interesting was taking something that I learned in one market and finding how you could apply that to another industry. And that's like where a lot of innovation occurs, is just being able to translate learning from one area into the next area, and then getting people excited about doing something just a little bit different to drive a different outcome. And then because we're in the business of delivering projects and deploying capital for our clients, the lather, rinse, repeat cycle of being able to do that over and over again that we do in our industry, right, is actually exciting because you get to try it different all the time, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
It does. How have you fostered the culture of innovation at Jacobs, which from the sideline seems very impressive? So, how have you done that? And then, how have you said you're very open to change? Most
Mm-hmm.
people are not.
Mm-hmm.
I am, but most people are not. How have you navigated that frontier as well? Because uh, with innovation, new things come. Change management, big part of that.
Yeah.
Your take on that?
Look, and I'm by no means perfect. We learn something new every single day. And so I don't know that we have the perfect playbook for it. But we certainly like to learn and adapt. I think the first thing is when people just have the opportunity to bring great ideas to the table and talk through them, you end up with a better outcome. I actually really enjoy idea debate. I have a lot of ideas. Some of them are interesting, fewer are meaningful, and then a very select component are valuable, and they only become that kind of valuable state because we socialize them together as a team, and we iterate on it, and then we really get to something that has some legs. So I think our focus on things like diversity of thought and perspective and having an open environment to talk about where things could go, agile principles, failing fast and some things don't work, and being able to pivot, of course, applies. But like team problem solving, I think has a lot to do with it. The other thing that we find is, well, I guess I'll admit this. I have some strengths. I'm not a patient person, and I always feel
Not
like
many
things
people are.
I always feel like things take longer than you expect. And
Sure.
that's not to say that they should, right? Because actually it takes what it takes in a lot of ways. But when you kind of look in the rearview mirror and see some of the progress that you've made as a team, like that's a source of inspiration to keep going. And I guess I just say that because you have to be comfortable if you're trying to lead change or transformation. A lot of people some people will come on the journey immediately. They're just going to jump on the bus with you. Others are going to kind of wait and see what happens. And then you've got
The
to bring up,
resistors. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so just, always checking in with that and appreciating that is how humans operate when they're dealing with change. The thing I look for is when a team's idea becomes somebody else's idea and they start talking about it and they get excited like it's their own. That's when you know something's taking off. And then you need to start thinking about, okay, what's next? How do you go to the next step? And so we're actually experiencing that a little bit right now in Jacobs with some of our digital solutions, and it just makes me smile when you walk into our office in London and you hear somebody talk about things that teams have been building like it's their own and they embrace it. It's just like all day long. I
Wow.
think we're headed in the right
That's
direction.
super cool.
Yeah.
Um, we have this once in a generation opportunity before us.
Hmm.
Internet, arguably 1983, it was
Yeah.
born. We're now in a new era of possibilities. You spoke to some of those use cases and possibilities. Um, what are you most excited about? And what is the prize that you think is possible for not only Jacobs, but for the industry?
Mm.
And maybe some thoughts or observations on what can this all become? Having the experience that you have, the perspective that you have, and now the leadership role that you're within.
Yeah. So maybe a couple thoughts on that. One, I think with the pace and scale of change that we have in front of us, regardless of where you are in your career, I think there's something exciting
Hmm.
about leveraging AI that maybe in the past it felt like that's not going to impact, if I was maybe where I am in my own career, we're not going to see the benefit of that technology or that change in my career time. But I think with the pace and scale of change, there's something for everybody to get excited about and see the benefits and the return on their own personal investment to kind of come on the journey with us. And I think that is somehow an important secret sauce to what's going on. Um, the thing that excites me the most is I actually feel like and I feel like I can say this because I'm an engineer that's worked in this industry for a bit, is we've kind of commoditized ourselves in the solutions that we deliver to our customers. And it comes from a place of, well, you hired me to help you solve this problem. And so I'm just kind of doing my job, right? And by and large, we're a humble,
Noble,
noble, absolutely. I love
honest,
that, honest profession. Um, and so, but along the way, I think we've commoditized the value that we offer, not only our customers, but their clients or their citizens or their communities that they operate in. And and I think that removing a lot of friction from the detailed work that we do and being able to have engineers elevate and have a bigger impact in the scale and the work that they do. I hope that it brings that like that a bit more sense of pride without arrogance back into all that we do, and that people can really see the impact that they can make, whether you're working in a municipality on a water treatment plant for that community, or you're doing participating in these big mega programs that get built over time. Being able to see the results of that impact and in a different way, I think is an exciting thing that's upon us today.
hmm
So not only are you trying to answer the mail with the customer on whatever it is that they're asking, I think it gives us the mind space and the opportunity to do even more for that same capital, for that same time period, which probably rings true to why most people became engineers and problem solvers and constructors and architects along the way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have a place near and dear to my heart. My late father was an engineer, went to RPI, New
Ooh.
York, electrical
Mm-hmm.
engineer, master's there. So I have a
Not a bad school, not a bad degree.
yes, but yeah, so I have a real special place for engineers
Yeah.
and what you all do and the reasons that you do it for.
Mm.
Um, There is a change coming, however. Obviously, with this, we've spent a couple days at the AI Summit talking about the
Mhm.
business model of the future, the reality of the promise of this type of technology, efficiencies, 10, 20, 30, 40%.
Mhm.
Um, I've been in this industry for dating myself over 3 decades
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
and it's been time materials based, right? Is that a race to the bottom? Is there the ability to invest at scale, the types of in the types of technologies that are needed? Um, are there new operating models, new business models of lump sum in a more pronounced way, gain share, and the like? Your thoughts on that progression, I guess, as an industry in light of this once in a generation opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. And I think some of that goes to the commoditization of our industry. I think it's also driven probably a lack of innovation in some ways from AEC firms because of some of the traditional models. But it does give us an opportunity to look at new business models and really partner closely with our clients. And that's probably been our approach is when we deeply understand the client challenge, but we're able to talk to them about how do we take a half a step or a full step forward on leveraging some of these innovations, and then what's the right share from a value perspective. I think we can start to make traction. It's probably one of our biggest friction points, quite
Hmm.
frankly, is how do we capture the value of leveraging an AI tool, or the ability to rapidly ideate different options that don't take a ton of time but add a tremendous amount of value
Value,
to our
yeah.
clients. And so it takes a lot of, relationship building and conversation with our customers, but I think we're finding our ways through it. Um, One might think that in the private sector, it's easier to move the needle than in the
Public
public
sector.
sector. There's challenges on both sides of those fence, and so we find that we've got to work the equation differently with customer sets on either side. But there is a way through it. Um, I think the other thing we need to be cognizant of is maybe two other thoughts on it. One, new entrants are entering our marketplace. And so we would have thought, or we would have talked, 15, 20 years ago, that our industry is highly fragmented. Nobody has a single, like, dominant market share globally, let alone like geographically. And that's been like kind of a challenge for driving disruption in our industry. I think those days are over. We're starting to see a lot of technology companies enter our space, a lot of management consultants getting in, especially in upfront advisory. And that's, I don't necessarily think, a bad thing. It exerts different dynamics into the system that force conversations with clients in a different way to think about how do you actually get holistic value out of the value chain. And because they have different commercial and business models, I think some of our partnership arrangements, as well as just different engagements and learning from those different firms, I think also helps us move the needle a bit with our clients too, because I think they're realizing that the traditional models of engineers against a taximeter over time doesn't necessarily drive the outcome that they need to get to either.
Yeah, you're spot on with obviously the movements of the likes of Accenture Industry X buying 10 to 12
Yeah,
companies.
yeah.
There could be a promise of fusing AI and big data technologies and infrastructure with domain experience. So
Mhm.
one can argue it will take many, many years to accumulate that domain experience, but if it's purchased and fused correctly, perhaps it could be expedited. Time
Yeah,
will tell.
yeah.
Um, One thing I came away from your presentation is very clear the domain expertise that you have in water and in
Mm,
other areas, transportation and infrastructure. Um, the products, the data products is how I'd characterize them
mm,
that you presented today. Very high end, very impressive. Carrying on that thread of the model, are you contemplating in having data products, monetizing those types of things as a complement to your your
mhm.
traditional service offerings? Is that a way to to bridge that
Yeah.
evolution of the business model? And how are your clients responding to what I was extremely impressed with,
Mm.
having seen it, having seen your presentation on the stage?
Yeah. So there's probably a few different flavors of how we're going to market with our digital solutions. There are a few cases where you can buy our product as a pure software as a service. be able to install it in your ecosystem and use it as a client. Streetlight Data was an acquisition that we talked about today, and,
Hmm.
and we acquired them about 3 years ago. And they have the model where you can, purchase straight SaaS. And actually, we're in over 40 of our departments of transportation here in the US, and we've been able to translate that into other geographies. But most of our solutions are really built within the overall offering of how we're delivering, whether it's a major program, a progressive design build, water or wastewater treatment facility, or how we're looking at driving, big transportation programs. So a lot of times it's offered as a part of our the rest of our offering,
Hmm.
and so we talked about a couple of those examples here today. But we're tinkering with it. Our intention is not to be a pure play technology
Hmm.
company. We are a solutions business
Solutions,
that
100%.
leverages domain expertise, because a lot of what we do is still bespoke to a client or an outcome that they're trying to drive. But leveraging digitally enabled solutions to make either the delivery of that capital easier and more effective, or the long-term operations and maintenance of their facility more effective, is where we're focusing our time.
Where do you see, obviously, you talked about the asset side of things. What
Mm.
is in that life cycle? Where is the biggest prize, you believe, having lived it now and seen it firsthand? Where is that prize for from a customer's perspective? How are they responding to that?
Yeah. So maybe a couple different examples. In life sciences, um, with the unlocking of things like GLP-1, and where the industry is going on solving some of the challenges with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, et cetera, that's taking what we would have seen probably 20 years ago as a race to deploy their medicines to the market. We're looking at something that's 10 or 100 times X that, right? Like the pipelines of work that they have,
Hmm.
and as we know, they're on patent, so the clock starts ticking once they get their medicine approved. And so this need for them to build in parallel and quickly is incredibly important. And they're thinking about things in very, very different ways. Like we've seen, a lot of companies are really buying up contract manufacturing organizations to be able to already have a facility that they're retrofitting and the like. So there, I think value is in helping them get speed to market. In other areas, that long-term operating cost is critically important. Energy is at a premium.
Hmm.
And with AI, that also puts further strain on the grid. And so just being able to reduce energy consumption and have more reliability in our grids is very important for all utilities across the board. And so we see a lot of value there with our asset and operations and maintenance technology tools. And then, the other area that we see tremendous value is kind of in this optioneering and helping communities figure out what is the best path for installing overpasses over highways to enable pedestrian mobility, or how to plan a bus rapid transit route through a community, and the power of AI to help them see those different options and plan in a more effective way buys the will out of their tax base, right? To
Hmm.
continue to look at improving their city and having a better user experience.
Yeah. What does digital transformation mean to you? And
Mhm.
how, what are those ingredients that you have found to be most successful as you've rolled out at scale these types of integrated digital service offerings, SaaS products, et
Yeah.
cetera? How did you do that? I mean,
Mhm.
and not to do it in a, on a kind of a peripheral perspective, but at scale
Yeah.
and at the enterprise.
Well, number one, whether you're doing something internally or you're doing something with a customer, putting a human at the center of everything that you do is critically important. We don't believe people go away in this equation. I don't think I'll see in my lifetime that two AI agents or language models talk to each other, and next thing you know, you have a new facility that's built. So I think humans are always at the center of it. When we think internally, it's personas like our project managers, our technologists, that we want to help make their working experience far more easy. When it comes to deploying solutions for our customers, putting the client at the center of what we do, or an operator at the center of what we do, is where we drive most of this. And I know it's like buzzword bingo anymore, but it's not about the technology, but moving quickly through those selections is critically important. And digital transformation is more about people change than it is about a technology change. Technology is an enabler. I don't like to use the word tool because that makes it seem transactional and not really part of all that you do. But so much of digital transformation is how you bring people along on
Mm-hmm.
the journey and keeping them at the center of all that you do.
No, 100%. And I like it more too about the experience. What
Hmm.
kind of experience are you creating for the customer, for
Yep.
the employee at Jacobs, and how are you reimagining those experiences as you go through these
Yeah.
personas as you're describing it? What level of iteration are you doing? What kind of reimagination are you doing just as a
Yeah.
as a concept?
So every day it's a new sort of learning day on how we make things easier. And a lot of this is actually because the technology is changing so quickly. So we tend to prioritize, just talking to people and understanding where their friction points and challenges are, how we want to surface, whether that's data or, a lot of times maybe in this conversation is around data. How do we surface data that's more meaningful for them so they can make decisions? Is probably a lens that we use, quite often. But I think the other thing is you can't get too wedded to something that you did a couple years ago. And I have to say this out loud because I need to speak to myself on this one as well.
We all do.
Because technology changes, you need to maybe reframe what you're trying to do sometimes, and just make sure that you're kind of getting after it. I think one of the challenges that we face at a company the size and scale of Jacobs and probably our culture, because we love for people to take ownership of what they do in their business and their project, is how do we harness the collective power to really pick a couple choice points to prioritize on, build out, prove some things out, and then scale it from there. And that's something that we constantly have to focus on. And I don't think that we'll ever give ourselves 100% grade on that front.
Well, I think you're well on your way. I think you're
I
being
hope
too
so.
humble, but as
Yeah.
looking from the sidelines, 5 years out,
Yeah.
what do you see at Jacobs? What do you see for the industry
Mm.
with this confluence of technologies, the speed that they're unfolding? Certainly, Gen AI, as we well know, but agentic systems and quantum computing, and the list goes on and on.
Mm.
Um, how does this play out in the built environment? What type of company will Jacobs 2.0 or
Mm.
3.0
Mm.
be from your vantage point 5 years from now?
Yeah. So 5 years, which
Then
is
I'll go to 10 maybe.
yeah. I mean, so then it gets more Monet-like when you get out to probably past 5 years, where you can't quite see it. It's more like an impressionist painting. Um, so look, I think in 5 years, um, we're probably looking more like our time is spent advising clients on options and how they could execute something in a more effective way. We've removed a lot of the friction and time in some of the more detailed design components. We're still absolutely doing it. I don't think that we have fewer engineers and designers in that space. I think they're actually able to be working across more projects, which is exciting because we do have a talent shortage on this planet for people to be focusing on this. So I don't think our headcount changes in that realm, but I think it gives us an opportunity for people to work at a higher level with our customers. A couple of the things that excite me the most is our ability to tap talent globally, hard stop, regardless of where you are, and that all people have an opportunity to contribute to great projects all around the world. And so this unlocking of talent is actually really exciting for me. It's not just, we move away from those traditional ways um, of kind of finding work and contributing to projects and the like. So I think that's kind of exciting. That talent mobility piece is pretty cool. Um, I mentioned it earlier today. Supply chain challenges aren't going away,
Hmm.
but we'll have faster ways to address them. And so I think that's kind of exciting too.
And unleashing that passion. I mean, you start to reduce the friction from,
Yeah.
from the professionals who went to engineering school to live their passion, and you can
Yeah.
really unleash that.
Hmm.
It's so promising.
Hmm.
Well, it's been an honor to have you here today with us on the podcast, and certainly your insight and was just fascinating
Mm.
to sit in the
Oh,
audience and
thank you.
hear your remarks
Mhm.
and what you're doing. Not only the talented folks at Jacobs are doing is it's breathtaking
Oh,
and
thank you.
very innovative. So wish you,
Mhm.
Jacobs, the very best and
Thank
much
you.
continued success in the future.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. I do represent thousands of people that work very hard and think passionately about what we're doing, and I have the great honor of helping represent that message and connect the dots and the like. So it's great to be here. Fantastic program. Really nice to spend time with you in person,
Thank you.
Javier.
Pleasure's mine. And thank you to our audience for joining us today on the Trailblazers podcast. Until next time, take care.